All right.
How's things, man? How are you feeling ahead of this one?
I'm good. I'm good, man. I feel really good. I had a good camp. Um, not too banged up. You know what I mean? No injuries. Put a little size on, so I'm feeling good.
We had your opponent out here earlier, and obviously there's been some words back and forth, but he did want to clarify that he actually does respect you, and he actually wanted to take a moment to appreciate that you would take a fight against a guy behind you, where he says he wouldn't necessarily do the same if he was in your position. So I thought I should let you know that.
Yeah, cool.
Do you still think he's a nerd?
I like nerds. I'm kind of a nerd. So like I said it all kind of like in I don't know, like in joking.
Yeah.
Like I can call him a nerd for quoting a movie, but like I knew exactly where it came from. You know what I mean? So like who's the bigger nerd? Like so I don't want to like offend all the nerds out there. I'm kind of nerdy myself. So um yeah, I just thought it was weird. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like I get it though. Like it was weird, but I understand it. Like we haven't had any interactions, and honestly, I've been nothing but respectful to his coach. Like I don't know him well enough to be super respectful or disrespectful, you know. Um, but I'm a big fan of his team. Like I think his coach does a really good job. Like we got a lot of MMA coaches out here, and there's not that many elite ones. You can count them on one or two hands. So. At least in my opinion, as far as if we're talking elite. And I think Safe's one of those guys. I've broken down a lot of his fighters, just working as an analyst at the desk. So I had a lot to say about his coach because I see the body of work that he's kind of put forth into the UFC. So that's why I thought it was weird. Like I went out of my way to say nice things when I didn't have to. And then, for him to just be weird, it doesn't matter to me. Lit a little bit of a fire. It's kind of fun. But, it is what it is. It doesn't matter whether he can sit up here and say he respects me, but I don't think he's going to have a choice on Saturday.
Nice. I think out of all the fighters we ever talked to, you're one of the guys who is most media savvy, as in you see things that the media does and you see the game and the way it all plays. So do you think maybe this can be one of those cases where the UFC promotional machine just takes something and it all gets twisted and we kind of write headlines about it and twist it and it ends up being something that actually it's nothing to either of you at all?
No, I think that it's not very often that I'm outspoken like that, and I wouldn't even say that's out. I mean, that's about as edgy as I get when it comes to opponents, you know what I mean? Unless we're talking about Luke Rockhold or something, but
or John,
and honestly, I've been pretty respectful to John. Like I haven't really talked badly I've never talked about his personal hiccups. I've never attacked him personally. I've never, you know what I mean? Like I've talked about some of the things he's done, in the octagon or at least surrounding the MMA space, but that's my job, so like when people get mad that I'm talking about fighters, I'm literally paid to do that. So I think it was just odd for me to like probably, come out and flip him some shit. You know what I mean? I thought it was fairly lighthearted. I don't think it was I didn't really come at him too hard.
I mean, nerd is not that bad, really.
No. And I said it laughing the whole time. It's not like I was attacking all nerds out there. Like I said, I'm pretty nerdy myself. So, I just don't think it's often that I kind of come at someone back a little bit.
When you look at the fight itself, in terms of your attributes, his attributes, with your analyst hat on, how do you see it playing out? Where do you have your strengths? Where does he have his strengths? How do they compare?
I guess I've been careful to not pull the curtain too far back, but I don't think there's too many secrets here. I've said it over and over and over again. He's a fantastic athlete. He's got big power in both hands. He can shut anybody off if he lands. I don't think he carries that power late into a fight. I don't think that's me, pulling the curtain back. I think that's fairly, that's out there. He's a big dude. He moves well. He's got some really tricky stuff on the ground. He's got some tricky, like submissions. It's a lot of transitional stuff. So I got to be careful where I put my neck. I got to be mindful of his hands around my neck. I got to make sure I put my hands in the right spot. And I just think, no disrespect. If he can't knock me out, he can't beat me. That doesn't mean he's not dangerous. It doesn't mean he's not tough. I think he's one of the more dangerous guys that I've fought recently. I thought Jimmy Crute was pretty powerful, but I think Ryan Spann's, as far as stopping ability, I think that Jimmy Crute can hurt you and finish you. I think Ryan Spann can completely shut you off.
Taking these fights against these guys like Jimmy and Ryan, it's not something that we often see. We see guys who just want to stay at their level and only go higher. Do you take a sense of pride in that? Like, I'll fight anybody and I'll fight these young guys and prove that I'm still above them, and prove there's still levels to go. Do you take pride in that?
Yeah, because I've been saying that for a long time. Anyone, anytime, anywhere. I've been saying that for years. Uh, and I think a lot of guys say that, but I actually live that life, and if it wasn't for guys like Shogun or Rashad that gave me an opportunity, but maybe they didn't necessarily need to or have to, maybe Rashad a little less just because of where he was at in his career at the time. I think it was, if he wanted to fight, I think he just kind of had to fight whoever. But Shogun didn't have to fight me. When his opponent fell out and they brought me in on like 8 days notice or whatever it was, he could have just said no. Like, he didn't need the money. He was on a 3-fight winning streak. They were talking about him getting a title shot next. He could have waited and got a better matchup on more time or whatever. So I always appreciated that, and I still do, about Shogun. Now, I'm not saying I want to be the guy that people make their careers off of, but I think later on down the road, I hope that people remember these moments where, like, I'm taking fights that I don't have to take. I could just sit and wait for a guy ahead of me to, I could wait. I could have waited for the title fight and fought the loser. But that's just not who I am. I like to stay active, and I just take the fights that are offered.
In a weird way, it's like essential for the ecosystem of MMA, right? You need guys to just take the fights.
Yeah, it's a circle of life, Like, I've been Ryan Spann wanting that opportunity, and I wanted it for a long time, and I never got it. And I, if I say something, I truly mean that, and that's the fight they came with, and that's the fight I took. I also think that I don't want to say I owed it to the UFC, but I think that I've never asked for something and not gotten it, and I think that's because I make sure that I've done the work and I've done the things that I needed to do to earn whatever I'm asking for. So I don't ask for a lot. So this is one of those moments. I think I slipped on a banana peel a couple times, so I had to put my head down, shut my mouth. I didn't call anybody out. I didn't ask for any fights. I just put my head down and I defended my position. And after 3 straight wins, I think that I'm in a position to ask for something.
Chael Sonnen often bemoans the fact that the modern fighter isn't the anyone, anytime, anywhere sort of guy. Do you think that's something that the sport has lost as it's grown?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think I'm the last of a dying breed. I've always said that I think that I was the youngest guy in the generation that's actually ahead of me. So, like, I came up with, at least in my area where I grew up at, like in Omaha, like the Ryan Jensens, the Jake and Joe Ellenbergers, the Houston Alexanders, Jason Brills, like, you've never heard any one of those guys shying away from a fight. I think I'm the youngest guy in Chael's generation. So it's just not how the game is. It's not how guys approach fights. It's not how management manages careers. But that's, again, like, I sleep good at night. You know what I mean? Like, my life is going well. And although you don't always win them all, but I think that as things kind of go around in a circle, I think it always comes back to me winning.
A couple of things outside this fight, because I enjoy getting your opinions on stuff. For better or worse, recently you seem to have become the advocate for guys should never have the towel thrown in and all that sort of stuff, and they should fight regardless. When you see something...
No. It's not that I don't...
Personally for you, at least.
Personally for me, I think the fight should be stopped more often. I think coaches should step in when... Speaking of, bringing Chael up, Chael said that the towel shouldn't be thrown in when your fighter can't continue. That he thinks it should be thrown in when your fighter can't win anymore. I think that's a little bit extreme. I just think it should be the fighter's choice, and that comes down to being for me personally.
So what I want to expand on from that is there a point where the fighter can no longer be trusted to make that choice? I'm thinking of Evander Holyfield and situations like that, where they get to a point where it's like everyone around them sees them working out. Everyone around them sees this is not likely to go well. At what point can it no longer be their choice?
Well, I think we're talking about extremes for sure. I think there's a lot of gray area in the middle, and I think that's where things get a little dicey. I don't personally think Evander Holyfield should have been in there fighting. I think Evander knows that. You know what I mean? And I think it comes down to paychecks, and I think that fighters, when it gets to the end of their career, I think the end of the career guys and then the towel throwing in situations are totally separate. Like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to stop on my own. I just don't. Because I've always said, like, I think I'll retire when I don't think that I can compete at the highest level anymore. But, like, fighters are pretty delusional. I don't know if I'll ever actually believe that. You know what I mean? I feel like I could be Evander Holyfield's age and be like, man, if I could just land that big shot, I could.
Yeah, I think he feels that way too.
I do think there's a moment where people need to step in for sure, 100%.
Do you think there's something to be said? And again, I'm asking your opinion on it, and this is just an opinion, but when you're someone like Vitor and you get in there and you see Evander throw the first jab, you must know, like, oh, he is 58.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a part of you that thinks maybe that guy, as a legend, should kind of help him get through the fight? Or do you think Vitor did the right thing, did his job, got him out of there?
I think it depends on the fighter. I'm not sure. I think I think I probably would have just helped him along and let's just get out of here whole, without putting yourself in any danger. I mean, you're going to have to land shots. That's just part of it. But I'm not sure that I could have gone in there and just, lit up Evander Holyfield like that after seeing him move like that. But I think we all know Vitor is a different beast. You know what I mean? So I do think that there's those situations that do happen where, I think there's, I don't know, like a mercy rule kind of, like Vitor had to have known that like this wasn't going to go well for Evander Holyfield. So,
and if he didn't, he would have realized fairly quickly.
Very quickly he would have realized. So I think it depends on the fighter. I think there's a lot of guys like Vitor out there, but I do think there's a lot of guys like me that would have just, let's just get this shit over with, and get my paycheck and get out of here.
Last thing for me, and I only asked you this because of previous comments you made. Last night, Dana White was here, very heavily advocating for Jake Paul to fight Anderson Silva. Would you be interested in watching that fight?
For sure. That's the fight that I think needs to happen. I just want Jake Paul to fight someone good. If he fights Anderson Silva, I'll shut up, and I'll stop being so critical. If he fights him and he even looks looks okay doing it, I'll shut up and give him his props. Like I've never hated on Jake Paul fighting. I think that everyone deserves the opportunity to fight. I advocated for CM Punk. I think they should all do it at a high level because, I mean, what are we going to put like CM Punk and Jake Paul and like I love the LFA, love it, but like, is that where we're going to put CM Punk? Like they can't even handle that type of celebrity, right? So, I think Jake Paul should be allowed to fight. I think that he's taking it very seriously. I think that he trains hard. I think that he respects the art and the game. I just don't think he's very good. So
what did you think of the Woodley fight and his performance in that?
I thought he looked awful. And I love Tyron. I don't want to be critical of him. He's a fellow fighter. He's also a coworker at the desk. But he's stuck in neutral all the time, and it's so frustrating. It's just like, if we're gonna lose anyways, just go berserk and just throw bombs. But so that part's frustrating. But like the mistakes that Jake Paul makes are very amateur mistakes. He has natural power in his hands. That's very clear. He's an athlete. That's very clear. But like if I threw a jab and my back foot came off the ground, Mark Montoya would tear my fucking head off. It just wouldn't be allowed, and he's supposed to make those mistakes at this point in his career. He's way better than he should be for the amount of time he's been fighting. I'll give him that. So I don't think he sucks. I just don't think he's very good, if that makes any sense. So if he was to fight Anderson and do well, I would stop criticizing him so much. As far as his abilities, I've never criticized the media thing. I think he's doing a fantastic job bringing the pay scale up and helping other fighters and all that stuff. I have no criticism there. It's just his actual abilities that I've ever criticized.
Do you think it's likely he would do well against Anderson?
No. Okay. I don't think so.
Me neither. Becky.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Anthony.
Hi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I just have a couple follow-up. You talk about the anytime, anywhere kind of mentality. Is there any downside to that maybe you put in all this work and you do everything, but you're not making a strategic moves for your career? Is there any fear that might come into play at some point?
Not too bad. I've never turned a fight down in the UFC. It's not often that I actually get fight offers though. So once you make it to a certain place in the division and in the rankings, like you kind of figure out what makes sense. So like it always drives me crazy when you see fighters asking for a fight that doesn't make any sense. So like they'll call out a guy that they haven't done the research on and realize he already has a fight coming up, or they'll be unranked and call out the number 4 guy, or like that stuff never pans out really. So anything I've ever asked for has made perfect sense, and I have a way of justifying that. So like I asked for Volkan Ozdemir because it made sense in the rankings. He didn't have a fight coming up. He was about to the point where he needed to get a fight booked, or he was about to. So that's what I asked for, and that's what I got. So typically I come to the UFC right away. Like I already have a name in my head typically when I fight. So if anything changes fight week, like that guy gets a fight booked during the week, then I'll change that name. And most of the time, that's what I get. So they came with Devin Clark, because it was initially, like, just for some context, like initially it was supposed to be Misha Serkinov. And that's who we asked for, because at the time and kind of where I was, and I'd lost 2 fights, like that's what I thought made most sense. And that's what I got. And then Misha backed out like last second. There was no one else available. Devin Clark was there. So that's how that fight happened. So I accepted the fight. And then it came to Jimmy Crute. That's one of the names that were on the list. So we gave him a list of like 3 guys that I thought made sense in the division, and Jimmy Crute was one of them. And that was the fight that happened. This one kind of came together kind of weird, because they offered him twice before, like on short notice, and I took it both times. And so I just assumed, like, why make any waves? It's the fight they want anyway, so let's just do that fight. And I didn't want to fight during the summer, so I said I'd wait till September, and if he wanted to wait, then that would be the fight, and that's how it happened. So I don't typically get a bunch of fight offers, but the ones I have gotten, I've taken.
And you mentioned that you have a name going into fight week for who you want to call out. I'm assuming you have a name for who you want to call out. You want to share that with us?
Yeah. I think I've already said it. I want Alexander Rakic again. I think that's the fight that makes sense. I know he wants to wait for the title fight, but I don't think that makes any sense. So that's one of those things where, like, doesn't really make that much sense. Like, he hasn't had any barn burner performances. He's done enough to win, which is essentially all you have to do. But he's not wowing anybody, and the UFC is not begging him to fight for the title or anything. So if Yuri Prohaska's next after the Glover and Jan fight, love Jan, love Glover, but they're not the youngest guys in the world. They're not going to fight every 2 months. So, like, and Jan already has shown he doesn't like to fight that often. So even if they wait 6 months, then you have the Prohaska fight has to happen. If just say Jan wins, and the Prohaska fight has to happen. Say Jan even wins, then you got another 6 months. He's already been out. Like, Rakic has already been out. I don't even know when he fought Thiago, whenever that was, at least 6 months ago. So he's going to wait a year and a half. Like, typically the UFC isn't super happy about guys that wait a long time to fight or hold out for title fights. So I would like the Rakic fight again. But if not, like, I feel like he's in a position where he's going to have to fight again or get skipped. If I got to be the guy to kind of push that, I'd like to do that.
You mentioned in another interview that there are climbers and defenders. And, forgive me if I interpreted this wrong, but are you implying that you're a defender?
Well, I think you're either in one of those 2 positions in your career. I think after the Glover fight and the Rakic fight, I wasn't in a position to ask for anyone ahead of me. So I just kind of had to defend the position that I was in. And I did that by fighting the guys that were behind me. So I think after this fight, I go in and I have a dominant performance. I don't think I have to defend my position anymore. I think I can go back to climbing, which is why the Rakic fight makes sense to me. I have to climb ahead of me. Thiago already has a fight coming up. Yuri's waiting for the title. Yuri's already got the title fight. He gets the winner. Reyes is coming off 3 losses. I don't think that makes any sense for me. And there's really just Rakic there. So that's kind of the only guy that makes sense to me right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you've always credited at some point the way that you're able to analyze fighters to how it's helped your career as well. When you're analyzing tape as an analyst and analyzing tape as an opponent, is it the same thing, or is there a different level of when you analyze a person?
At the beginning, it was this. It was as an opponent versus as an analyst. But I found as I've gotten better at the analyst side of it, I think you actually get better. I don't know, maybe a better view of who that fighter is by just breaking him down as an analyst and like kind of taking myself out of it. Like, what's he good at? Where's he not good? And then looking at it like, how would other guys maybe exploit some of those holes, and then put myself in that position. Say, all right, now what's my skill set? And then I have to analyze myself, figure out what my own skill set is, and then where do I fit in some of those holes? Because some of those places where maybe I'm really good somewhere, and I think that's where I want to go. Maybe he's really good there defensively, so it'd be a kind of a waste of time to just attack a strength when I can find another kind of finger in my game, and then I guess insert that into that deficiency.
All right, I'll shoot just one more. I guess lastly, I guess if we're gonna have one, I'm just gonna cheapen it up again and go back to the Jake Paul thing. Last night when we were talking to Dana, I have to apologize because I called him George. I reverted back to his old name, but Jorge Masvidal, Jake Paul, and Jorge have been going, jawing back and forth a little bit. Should that fight ever happen, how would you see that fight playing out?
Well, I'm not a decision maker by any means, so I would like to watch it. I don't know if it should happen, but I'd love to watch it. Again, it kind of goes back to where I feel like Jake is as an athlete. I think Masvidal wins that all day, barring a big shot. So I just don't see where Jake Paul wins a fight against like super high level strikers. He's been beating wrestlers and guys that are smaller. That's the other thing that kind of bothers me. He's not fighting anyone. Jake Paul's like my size, so
Big boy.
He's a big dude. So he's fighting welterweights. As beefed up as Tyron Woodley is, he's still like 5'7", and he's a welterweight. So I would like to see him, and that kind of goes to the Anderson thing. Anderson is his size. Anderson's also a big guy. So if he was to fight someone his size that was good, I would shut up for sure.
Best of luck.
Thanks, guys.